to the country's geographical location, New Zealand has become another important study destination for those wanting to learn the English language. The image of Thai students in New Zealand is a familiar sight, coming to the minds of many upon mention of the country. Yet apart from serving as an excellent language learning destination, there are many other interesting aspects in the relationship between Asia and New Zealand. This is especially so in this day and age, in every corner of the cities where we see the Mongoloid racial groups of people indigenous to large parts of Asia. Sites like these have become extremely common, and they do further expand the areas of interest when speaking of Asia, New Zealand. Asian New Zealanders, Generation 1.5. According to Stats NZ's projections, a quarter of New Zealand's population could be Asian in around 26 years' time. Asian peoples are projected to expand ahead of the Maori, who are the indigenous people of this island.
It is true that is expected to be that people from Asia will comprise a quarter of the population. That, I think, is really exciting. It's also, we should say, Asia is broad. It is people from India to Japan. And there is a huge difference between those populations. So I think that really what's interesting is the different communities that come, and those communities add huge richness to New Zealand, and we're really lucky to have those communities.
Almost 30 years ago, the government sector developed an interest in the possibility that Asia could become an important gateway for the future of New Zealand. This is due to New Zealand's location in the heart of the Pacific Ocean, which interlinks with many Asian countries. So with this in mind, Asia and New Zealand almost have a neighborly relationship. That piece of insight from the government sector during that time resulted in the establishment of the Asia-New Zealand Foundation, whose role is to promote understanding of the ways of Asia among the Kiwi public. Nick Siu, business director of the Asia-New Zealand Foundation, is stationed in his current posting at the Auckland branch office. He provides us with some interesting information concerning the growth of the Asian population in New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand's got quite a special relationship with Southeast Asia. A lot of it started with something called the Colombo Plan in the 1950s and 1960s, where New Zealand funded young students to come to New Zealand from Southeast Asia and learn about New Zealand. And a lot of those young students in the 1950s and 60s have started and created amazing careers both in business and in politics back in Asia. So a lot of them have never forgotten their love for New Zealand from when they were students.
As Nick has told us, when the students of the Colombo Plan grew into professional adults of their birth countries, their profound familiarity with New Zealand would then inspire them to maintain business contacts in this country up until the present day. Some feel a close connection to the point of sending their children to New Zealand to experience what they had in their younger days.
Yeah, it's really fascinating about the diaspora that lives here in New Zealand. So, it's, as mentioned before, it's a very young country. And it's a young country because a lot of it has been based on primary produce and agriculture. And so New Zealand has a lot of land and a lot of space. And so we do require immigration growth to be able to support those industries. So interestingly, if we look outside, for example, Auckland, close to 30% of Auckland can now define themselves as being Asian. But not only that, 86% of every single Asian person has arrived in the last 25 years. And over half of those people, over 50%, has arrived in the last 10 years. So that migration group is actually 30, the median age is 10 years younger than the rest of population, which means that they are coming with multi-generational families. They're going to start having young families. They are extremely technology savvy, so they understand digital and they understand the impact of what a modern technology can do for both business and for their lives.
The Asian New Zealand Foundation promotes knowledge of the ways of Asian business culture among the New Zealand public. Apart from the commercial aspects, the foundation also assigns importance to mutual understanding via artistic media.
So the percentage of New Zealanders who identify as Asian is growing, and that's been the case for many years, particularly in the last 20 years. And so what you're starting to see now is what we call the 1.5 generation. So that's the generation of New Zealanders that have grown up in New Zealand, but maybe were born in Asia, or maybe their parents, have brought them to New Zealand from Asia. So you're now starting to see those people growing up becoming artists, and they're starting to create really exciting work themselves, based in New Zealand, but they draw on that Asian identity and their Asian culture. So Asian work is now becoming part of what we would call New Zealand work.
As previously mentioned by Greg Cooper, Artistic Director of the Foundation, New Zealanders of Generation 1.5 are the part of the population who are the reason behind our travel across the seas to this beautiful island. And yet people from the many countries across Asia are not the only ones who want to settle here. The New Zealand government has announced a green list which provides a priority pathway to residency. This fast-track pathway reflects the country's need for people to occupy certain levels of professional roles.
New Zealand created the list because, like many other countries, we have a huge demand for labour, skilled labour, and have labour shortages. And so the list was developed to address need in New Zealand. So we are looking for workers in, for example, the health sector, the construction sector, skilled trades, agriculture sector, and they are to fill gaps.
Gritiyada Sapu, known by her friends in New Zealand as Amy, is a YouTuber who updates stories of her working life in a foreign country. She's been living here for 10 years and understands the ways of life here in different dimensions. She also has a very good understanding of the demand and supply in the New Zealand workforce.
ค้ามีหลากหลายเลยเจอลูกค้าส่วนมากคนนิวซีแลนด์เขาจะเป็นคนที่นิสัยดีค่ะยิ้มแย้มอัธยาศัยดีเขาจะไม่แบบบูลลี่ไม่แบบว่าเหยียดเชื้อชาติไม่บางทีเราภาษาอังกฤษเราไม่เก่งเราพูดแบบบางคำเราพูดไม่ค่อยชัดไม่รู้เรื่องเงี้ยเอ็กเซนต์ไม่ได้เขาไม่มีหัวล้อนะคะเขามีแต่พยายามมามองความเข้าใจเราช่วยเราไม่มีหัวล้อเยาะแบบพูดผิดอะไรเงี้ยเหมือนแบบที่เราเคยเจอไงไม่
Had a gentleman from China. Yep. But all over the world, I had French, New Zealand English, German. Yeah, a lot of different people. Thai people work extremely well.
Amy lives with her husband, Kitty Yinkamhang, or Mal, in the small town of Hanmer Springs, which is 2 hours away from Christchurch. Her job at the hotel only serves as additional income aside from her regular job. Every evening she works as an assistant at the Thai restaurant where her husband works as chef. Chef Mao tells us that New Zealand is extremely strict in the area of bringing plants into the country. As a consequence, it's forbidden to bring in many kinds of raw materials that are essential in Thai cooking. And for this reason, there needs to be an adaptation by way of substitute ingredients.
พอมาอยู่ที่นี่มันจะหายากกว่าที่เมืองไทยแต่ก็มันก็ไม่เป็นปัญหาสำหรับเชฟเพราะว่าเชฟมีการปรับตัวแล้วก็อีกอย่างหนึ่งการทำอาหารที่นี่มันจะเป็นอาหารฟิวชั่นไทยฟิวชั่นมากกว่าที่จะเป็นอาหารไทยแท้เพราะว่าฝรั่งเขาก็รับไทยแท้ไม่ค่อยได้ส่วนใหญ่
This is the only Thai restaurant in Hanmer Springs. It has a warm atmosphere and was set up by owner Nitipat Yunan, who directly studied in the area of nutrition and food science. We can't help asking why the shop is a takeaway. By our visual estimation, the shop has enough space for accommodating dine-in customers.
Chicken or prawn? Yep. Beef fried rice. Yep. เพราะว่าลายเส้นก็คือร้านอาหารก็จะเป็นลายเส้นอีกอย่างหนึ่งเทคเวย์ก็จะอีกลายเส้นหนึ่งมันก็จะแตกต่างกันอะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับซึ่งข้อแม้อย่างเงี้ยกฎข้อระเบียบก็อาจจะมีเพิ่มเติมมาบ้างในของส่วนของรีสอร์ทก็จะแบบค่อนข้างเยอะหน่อยอะไรเรื่องห้องน้ำห้องท่าอย่างเทคเวย์ก็คือจะง่ายๆไม่ได้ซีเรียสมาก
เงื่อนไขเขามีบ้างโต๊ะอาหารต้องไม่เกินเท่าไหร่
ใช่ก็จะมีขนาดของโต๊ะอาหารก็ต้องสัมพันธ์กับขนาดของคาร์พาร์คกับห้องน้ำอะไรเงี้ยห้องน้ำก็จะต้องแยกชายหญิงอะไรเงี้ยประมาณนี้ครับแต่อย่างของเทคเวย์ก็คือ easy แค่ว่าเราก็ต้องมีคาร์พาร์คให้ลูกค้าจอด
ตอนนี้ที่เอทำงานเอได้ค่าแรงมากกว่าขั้นต่ำนิดนึงตอนนี้ค่าแรงขั้นต่ำอยู่ที่$22.70 ก็ประมาณ470 บาทต่อชั่วโมงนะคะแล้วทำงานวันหนึ่งประมาณ5 ชั่วโมง นะคะแต่ละวันเขาก็จะให้ทำไม่เท่ากันด้วยแล้วแต่ว่าเจ้าของร้านก็จะให้ทำกี่ชั่วโมงบางทีถ้าเงียบเราก็จะได้ทำน้อยลง4ชั่วโมง3ชั่วโมงแต่ถ้ายุ่งเราก็4ชั่วโมงครึ่ง5ชั่วโมงวีคหนึ่งก็จะได้อยู่ประมาณ10,000 กว่าบาทอาทิตย์หนึ่งนะคะ10,000 กว่าบาทแล้วถ้าคิดเป็นเดือนก็เกือบ50,000 บาทสำหรับตัวเอแต่สำหรับแฟนก็จะอีกเรทหนึ่งเพราะเขาเป็นเชฟก็ค่าตัวเขาก็จะแพงกว่า
Back in Auckland, we meet another Thai YouTuber who updates stories of life working in New Zealand. Panodet Klangsuda, or Nak, has a life path in New Zealand that is rather different from Amy's. Nak and his older brother settled here with their parents when they were in the early years of secondary school. They are now close to the age of 30. He and his brother have saved enough money to buy their own house. He tells us that he now has New Zealand citizenship. Nak and his brother are contractors. They inherited the profession from their father. On the day we arrived to watch them work, we are most surprised to hear Thai language being spoken with such clarity. There were flash moments in which we slip into thinking that we are actually filming in Thailand.
ตามที่น็อตหรือตะปูที่บิลเดอร์เขาได้ยิงไว้
Nak tells us that apart from him and his brother, there are many other Thai contractors and craftspeople who are employed at many construction sites in Auckland. However, the current situation may not be as positive as in the past due to the changes that are taking place in the share of the market.
มีคู่แข่งเยอะไหมพวกอาชีพแบบนี้
ก็ขึ้นอยู่กับฝีมือและก็ความเร็วในการทำงานด้วยครับตอนแรกๆก็ไม่ค่อยมีคู่แข่งเยอะครับแต่พอหลังๆมาเหมือนทางด้านคนจีนเขาย้ายเข้ามาเยอะแล้วทีนี้คนจีนเขาจะรับราคาที่ถูกกว่าผู้รับเหมาเขาก็ชอบราคาที่ถูกกว่าเขาก็จะเอางานให้คนจีนซะส่วนใหญ่หลังจากปี 2015 เนี่ยผมจะเห็นว่าคนเอเชียเริ่มเยอะขึ้นมากๆเลยแต่ก่อนยังไม่เยอะเท่านี้แต่ว่าช่วงนี้นี่เยอะมากๆ
Yeah, I think sports played a really important role in helping new migrants in New Zealand integrate into New Zealand culture over the years, over the centuries. But more recently, the Asian communities that have come in here have created not only their own sporting communities and groups, but they've also taken a strong lead into integrating into New Zealand's sports system. And I know that this is something that Sport New Zealand are also looking into as to how our structures need to adapt and change to be able to integrate the diverse range of ethnic groups that are moving to New Zealand. So it's really important. It breaks down so many barriers. There's so many friendships that can be made out of sport. And often it is all you need is a ball or a stick or something like that. You don't need to speak the same language, but you can just enjoy playing sport and it brings people together.
Kirsty Sharp, who is sports program manager of the Asian New Zealand Foundation, tells us about the role of sports in the establishment of relationships. Every Monday at this badminton court in Auckland, Thai and Laotian people come together to play sports. This community of people who are far away from home get to meet and speak in their mother tongue so that the difficulty of living abroad is not too much to bear.
งานประจำคือเป็น insurance broker ค่ะ
จริงๆเมืองไทยคือบ้านเกิดเนาะยังไงก็ยังรู้สึกว่าเราเป็นคนไทยแต่ด้วยความที่เราก็อยู่ที่นี่มาครึ่งชีวิตเกินครึ่งชีวิตเรามันเหมือนผสมอะค่ะแล้วเราก็รักในความเป็นที่นี่ในส่วนที่มันเป็นเรื่องดีของเขาแต่ก็รักในความเป็นไทยเพราะว่าบ้านเกิดเมืองนอน
เป็นช่างทำผมที่นิวซีแลนด์เราต้องทำการวิเคราะห์เส้นผมลูกค้าก่อนดูถึงว่าถ้าผมอย่างเงี้ยถ้าเขาจะไปสมมติผมมาเป็นผมดำแล้วเขาอยากเลื่อนไปเป็นผมบรอนซ์เราก็ทำให้ไม่ได้เพราะว่ามันใช้ผงฟอกแรงไม่ได้ไม่งั้นเดี๋ยวผมขาดผมร่วงมาเขาก็ฟ้องเราได้อย่างเงี้ยครับซึ่งลายเส้น hairdresser ที่นี่ก็สำคัญแต่เราก็ไปสอบมาแล้วได้แล้วครับ
คนเอเชียนี่มาทำอาชีพนี้ในนิวซีแลนด์เยอะ
ครับก็สมัยจะเป็นคนจีน
Apart from sports, religion also plays a role in uniting people of common faith, regardless of which corner of the world they end up residing in. At Wat Tipatam Malam, which is not far from Auckland Airport, we meet Howard Winiata, who is a temple co-founder, along with his Thai wife and other Buddhists. Howard tells us that during the important days of the Buddhist calendar, every inch of this peaceful temple is occupied by Thai people.
The Buddha was made by the monks in Thailand and shipped out here in a container. And we put onto a truck.
Yes.
And we backed the truck in the back door, right up here. The crane on the front lifted it off, put it in place. When we have papa or kitin, basically this is full with our worshippers, all in here, and we usually have about 7 or 8 monks up the front. And all out along the grassed area, they have tents, small tents, and it's like Thailand, it's wonderful.
In this day and age, there are many different reasons as to why people settle in New Zealand on a long-term basis. The reasons can range from career to study to seeking a quality environment for conducting one's life. But if we look further back in the past, beyond the period of time previously mentioned by Nick, we may see a much clearer picture that as far as this modern nation state has existed, Asian labor has always been essential to this country.
Then in 1865, gold was discovered on the west coast of the South Island, and most of the Californian and Victorian miners that were working in Otago rushed off to the west coast. The political body in Otago was very upset by that development. And so they had a gold field, but not enough people working in it. So they invited Chinese miners who were in Victoria, Australia, to come to New Zealand. The Provincial Council of Otago, that were the political ruling body in Otago, they first of all approached the Chinese storekeepers, who were sort of the political leaders of the Chinese, and invited them to come to Otago. The Chinese declined because things had been very bad in Australia, a lot of racial abuse, but they'd finally got things sorted out, and they didn't really want to go through it all again. But the people in Otago invited them a second time. The Chinese said that they would come if they were guaranteed to be protected under the law, just as anybody else should be. Okay. The Otago Provincial Council guaranteed that, and the Chinese started to arrive.
How many of them at a time?
Well, the first group of Chinese was about 6,000 over 12 months.
This is quartz.
Goldfields Mining Center is located in Cromwell, a small town not far from Queenstown. Christopher Spears takes us around many important areas in the mining site. The area that stands out the most for our Spirit of Asia team is the Chinese village that's hidden away on the mountain. We learned from Christopher that the buildings we now see have recently been set up for use in film sets. But in the past, there really was a village here inhabited by Chinese gold miners, and the original state of the buildings was not so different from what we are seeing now.
As an Asian person living here in New Zealand who has lived in both worlds, the number one thing that I see that Asians, doesn't matter whether you're Southeast Asian, you could be Thai, Filipino, Vietnamese, Singaporean, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, everybody values business based on relationships. So the best business, I think, comes from when people become friends. And if they become friends, it takes a long time to become friends. It can't happen overnight. It has to happen when you come to my home, I come to your home, you meet my family, I eat with your family over a long period of time, and then we can build sustainable businesses together. I think for many Western countries, the attitude is quite different. For business can be very much about, I must do a transaction first, and if the transaction makes profit, then we can become friends.
In the blending of different peoples in New Zealand society, diversity in physical appearances and language is not considered a problem. This is most definitely considered a major strength that our Spirit of Asia team has come to admire over the course of this trip. We believe that regardless of the initial reasons behind learning about each other, the attempt at embracing different ways and lives has now become a cultural phenomenon in New Zealand. This is another example of how people may begin to see the positive aspects in the way borders between continents and countries are slowly fading away.